Hi, everybody. We are so happy for you to join us today for our first Library Lunch and Learn event. This is a very exciting new program from the Library Marketing Department at Penguin Random House, where we get another opportunity to meet with all of you. We see a bunch of our friends that we've missed seeing in person. So hello to all of you. And also, this is a great opportunity for us to get to know people that we haven't worked with before. So we're so excited for the Library Lunch and Learn event. It is going to be a really fun year of really informative events for all of you. Again, we always want your feedback and suggestions on what you want us to provide for you. But we have a great lineup today. And we won't take much time with the introductions because you'll see we have an incredible lineup of speakers today. We even have a little bit of a time for a yoga demonstration, so be ready to stretch. I know that we all could use a little bit of that in our lives right now, a little bit of stretching and relaxing and taking a minute to all these challenges going on. So I think yoga is a perfect place. We've got something about healthy living. Miriam's going to talk more about our program in a minute, but I just wanted to take an official moment to welcome all of you to our Library Lunch and Learn. Our first topic is health and wellness. In a year where we have all realized that taking our health for granted is not an option, we are so excited to have this program for you today. So Miriam, why don't you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about the program, and then we'll get right to the speakers. And thank you all very much. Remember, there is a Q&A section, so if you have questions, get them in there, and we'll try to get them to the authors while they're talking. Thanks. Oh, Miriam, just unmute yourself.
Apologies. Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you for joining us today for this first episode of Lunch and Learn. As Kelly mentioned, this is a bi-monthly series that focuses on what RA guru Neil Wyatt refers to as the extravagantly rich world of nonfiction. Our aim is to introduce you to some inspiring and informative new nonfiction books and support your important work in reference and readers advisory services, collection development, and programming. The Lunch and Learn series will feature guest authors, editors, and librarians, and we'll be covering topics this year, many topics this year, including cooking, art, science, and leadership. Our subject today is, as Kelly mentioned, health and wellness, and it is now my privilege to introduce you to Dr. Noah Lenstra, who will be highlighting healthy lifestyle programs and diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives in libraries. Noah Lenstra is an assistant professor of Library and Information Science at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro's School of Education and the author of Healthy Living at the Library. Noah started Let's Move It Libraries at UNC in 2016. He's currently the principal investigator of an early career award from the Institute of Museum and Library Services, focused on understanding how public libraries work with partners to promote healthy living, healthy eating, and active living. In addition to being an active member of several library associations, he serves on numerous national boards and committees, including the Public Library Association's Health Literacy National Advisory Board, the CDC's Physical Activity Policy Research and Evaluation Network's Rural Working Group, and the American Heart Association's Voices for Healthy Kids Activating Rural America Advisory Group. He studied at the School of Information Sciences at the University of Illinois, completing his PhD research on how public libraries and senior centers help older adults learning digital technology. Welcome, Noah.
Yeah, thank you, Miriam, and thank you everyone for being here. I'm thrilled to be sharing the next few minutes talking with you about my book, Healthy Living at the Library, and how some of the ways that public libraries are helping to support healthy living for all And I'm just putting a quick link into the chat. In addition to the book, I have a monthly newsletter as part of my Let's Move in Libraries initiative, in which I highlight inspiring examples of public libraries working with community partners to address public health outcomes. And just to back up for a minute, I got inspired to really look at this topic during the Obama presidency, when former First Lady Michelle Obama, beginning in 2010, started the Let's Move campaign, which was really focused on harnessing the power of all different institutions in society to get America moving and eating more healthily, with the idea being that we can all play a role in getting America to be the healthiest nation it can be. And that included libraries. So one of the things that Michelle Obama did was work with the Institute of Museum and Library Services to highlight how libraries can help feed children during the summer months by participating in the U.S. Department of Agriculture's summer feeding program. And so based on this inspiring story, in 2016, I started looking at some of the different ways that public libraries work with partners to promote healthy living. And what I found is that we can, as librarians, change the culture of health in America by prioritizing access for all, by identifying inequities and working with partners to address those inequities, and really working creatively with partner organizations around collective impact, which is a term that refers to the commitment of a group of actors from different sectors to a common agenda. And if you'd like to learn more about the theory behind this, I have an article in the September 2020 issue of the Delaware Journal of Public Health. They had a special issue on public libraries and public health, in which you can learn more about this. But today, I really just want to give a whirlwind example of some of the ways that this is actually playing out in libraries, and in particular during the COVID-19 pandemic. And so one of the ways that libraries are really stepping up during the pandemic to prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion in healthy living is through Story Walk initiative. And so this image here is from the Free Library of Philadelphia, where one of their branches had a Black Lives Matter Story Walk to really highlight titles that reflect the diversity of the communities that they serve. And if you're not familiar with the Story Walk, here's an image of how it looks in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's literally just taking a book, deconstructing the pages, and posting it along a walking trail. You can do it in a very pop-up way, or you can, as Charlotte did, create permanent installations where they strategically located the story walks in underserved neighborhoods, areas that were identified as being book deserts, as it were. And we can also, if we do story walks, we can prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion by strategically selecting titles, as I said, that reflect the diversity of our communities. So here's two examples from Colorado and Boston of using bilingual or Spanish language titles for the story walks. We can also really champion healthy living at our libraries by embracing the shared use of the library. Now, shared use is a concept from public health that essentially refers to the idea that if there's any public space that's not being fully utilized, let's think about how we could use that space to promote health outcomes. And that's exactly what happened in Monterey Park, California, where Norma Arvizu allowed a local fitness group to basically use her parking lot as a shaded space for them to do their dance classes. And you can learn more about this innovative use of library space in the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation video, Fun and Fitness in a Library Parking Lot. And this is exactly what Eric Feinenberg also discusses in his book, Palaces for the People, where, as you may recall if you read this book, he talks about the Library Lanes program at the Brooklyn Public Library, which was an ongoing initiative to get older adults gathered together, socializing, and also moving their bodies in a fun, healthy, inviting, and engaging format. And we can also embrace shared use in our outdoor spaces by, for instance, starting a community garden. In fact, that's exactly what happened in Jacksonville, North Carolina in August of this year. Here's a photo of the Librarian in front of their community wellness garden. And a picture on the right, also from North Carolina, of some community gardeners taking advantage of the shared use of the library space during the COVID-19 pandemic. We continue to promote shared use by working with food pantries to provide, as this example in Wisconsin, free weekly food bags for individuals and families. So in addition to getting books during the pandemic, you can get food. We've been doing the same thing with virtual, transitioning in-person programs into virtual opportunities for people to engage in healthy living opportunities. This example from Oregon features the Coos Bay Public Library working with a local food co-op on a healthy cooking class. And so you could do this at your library by strategically trying to identify minority and female-owned businesses to invite in to do virtual cooking classes. Libraries also during the pandemic continued to prioritize equal access by offering programs for older adults who may not feel comfortable in a traditional fitness setting. And so, for instance, here's Los Angeles' public library Zumba with Cynthia, a free online Zumba Gold class, which happens every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Zumba Gold, you may know, is an adaptive form of Zumba designed for people who would not find a traditional Zumba class to be accessible. And in fact, libraries have found that having fitness classes over Zoom has actually increased their accessibility as people can shut off their webcams during class so that nobody else can see them. We're also promoting healthy living during the pandemic by inviting local experts to come in and share their expertise, which is exactly what Toronto Public Library did by inviting members of the Black Outdoors organization to come in and share important information about the fact that our outdoor spaces are for everyone, and you don't need to look a particular way to enjoy the benefits of being active outside in nature. Seattle Public Library actually just yesterday invited yoga instructor and fitness experts to come in and share a variety of fun ways you can add more movement into your everyday life. So the possibilities are endless is really the message I want to convey. When you start working with partners, there's no limit to what you can do to promote healthy living at your library. Just one final virtual example. This is from Tennessee, where they're starting the library book club in January of this year. It works like this. You download titles from Hoopla, audiobooks. You go listening to your audiobook as you walk around, and then you gather together for a Zoom conversation about the title that you listen to on your walk. And how do you get started with this? This is the question people always ask me. I want to do this at my library. How do I get started? And the answer that I have, based on my research, is that it starts with us. Over and over again, I've seen these programs spearheaded by librarians who are themselves passionate about healthy living and want to share that passion with their community. These are two great examples. On the left is the immediate past president of the American Library Association, Loretta Garcia-Fabo, taking the book bike of the Los Angeles Public Library out for a spin. You may recall she oriented her presidential term around the theme of workplace wellness. And on the right is America's action figure librarian, Nancy Pearl, who last year started combining her two greatest pleasures, walking and reading. She does all of her reading, or most of it now, in the form of audiobooks as she walks around Seattle. And she says, if I don't walk, it's really not a great day. And I know a lot of people are really feeling burnt out right now, and I would really recommend, if you're feeling burnt out, to really take a look at the work of Library Director Jen Carson. And jencarson.com, she has some amazing resources on her website, which really, I hope, will give you the inspiration you need to take care of yourself. Because like I said, this programming really starts by librarians who are passionate about this topic. And here's two examples of these passionate librarians. These are two members of my advisory board, Michelle Bennett Copeland on the left and Christy Dyson on the right. They got a pick with the mayor of Atlanta, Kesha Lance Bottoms, at the summer 2019 kickoff of their summer learning program. And so I want to start to wrap this up and begin to take some time for a Q&A by sharing 3 ways that we can change the culture of health in America. We can change the culture of active living by emphasizing that anyone can move their body. You don't need to look a particular way to be active. You don't need to have a particular type of body to be active. And 2 great examples of our Boston Public Library inviting Jessamine West, part of her Everybody Yoga Tour. And this is an example from a university library. in Ohio, where they actually worked with the campus wellness department to create these little tutorials about simple things you can do to be active in the library, and posted it all over the library. So really reiterating and reinforcing that the library does not have to be a sedentary space. You can get up and move in the library. We can also change the culture around food systems by, as I said, getting involved in national initiatives like the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Summer Feeding Program. We can team up with local food banks to get food to people who need it. And if we can, as if the Southern Adirondack Library System in New York did, start a farm to library initiative in which literally local farmers who have extra produce drop it off at the library. It goes in this fridge, and anyone who wants food takes it, no questions asked. There's no stigma attached, and it's been hugely popular. We can also change the culture of outdoor space by really reimagining our relationship with the neighborhoods around us. We can do things like have a walk out as the St. Louis County Library did, inviting older adults to participate in a 1-mile guided walk to assess the safety for pedestrians in your community. So let's really use our expertise around citizen science programming to get our communities actively involved in the urban planning decisions that affect the types of neighborhoods in which we live. Give another example of that playing out in Rochester, New York, where they had community members paint the sidewalk along the Story Walk as part of a play walk initiative. Just one more example of changing the culture of outdoors. I really encourage you to take a look at bikes2books.com rather, which is an annual program of the Multnomah County Library in Portland, Oregon, where they have an art contest, and the winning design is literally painted into bike lanes to really reinforce the idea that everyone should feel safe biking around Portland, Oregon. You don't need to look a particular way, or our streets ideally should be safe for everyone, whether you're walking, bicycling, or in a car. And if you want to stay involved in this conversation, Queens Public Library has teamed up with the Black Caucus of the ALA for Black Health and Healing Virtual Summit in February. So take a look at blackhealth.queenslibrary.org. One of the themes is going to focus on activating your health through transformative practices, getting moving and practicing self-care. So tune in, get involved. And just a few concluding remarks. Team up. We can do so much more when we work with others in our communities around collective impact. Start small. Don't try to do everything that I've discussed today. You'll definitely get burnt out. Do something, try it out, see how it goes, dream big. And if you focus on increasing access for all, you are not going to go astray. So thank you for your time. I just have a quick promo code for the book. If you'd like to dig deeper, 20% off, expires at the end of March. Thank you for your time, and I'm going to gift things back over to Kelly.
Noah, that was so helpful. Thank you so much. That was really interesting and I think inspiring. A lot of people in the chat were saying how wonderful these ideas were. A lot of people are talking about their online classes that they've been doing and offering from their libraries. We did have a question about what's a good example or a good suggestion for a middle grade story time walk. So if anybody has any suggestions for that, we'd love for you to put that in the Q&A or the chat box.
I'll just really quickly offer what I've seen a lot of middle grades is actually have the stories created by the middle grade students themselves. I've seen a couple examples of that, and so if that individual wants to reach out to me, I know of it. So rather than have a prepackaged story walk, why not have the middle schoolers create the story themselves and use that for the walk?
Oh, I love that idea. Yeah, Miriam, can you think of any other questions that we want to ask?
Yes, I also was interested in your work with the IMLS, what you've been hearing from communities around what their needs are.
Yeah, the IMLS, I think really what we're hearing, the major need right now is really food. So that's, I don't think that's surprising. I think food access and food security is so important right now, and so many people are really struggling, especially families that rely on school lunches. So yeah, I think anything we can do to increase food access is especially important right now during the pandemic.
Great. And hold on one second. I'm just
shining a light on our colleagues' work.
Yes, I agree. And any slideshow that has Nancy Pearl in it is always wonderful. We're just going to try to bring up our other authors. And I just want to also say that of all the things that have been done virtually this year, I do think that it's one of the things I love virtually is the virtual exercise. To me, I'm totally fine with. I think that's like the best. I'm fine with virtual exercise.
Noah, we do have a question from Lynn, one of the attendees. How does the book bike work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually thought of that and just put a link. So Pima County Library in Arizona, they were one of the first libraries in the country to get a book bike. So they have a wonderful kind of history and how-to. I think they really break it down. There's actually a few vendors now that specialize in book bikes because it's become such a popular program. So hopefully that link will help you, Lynn. And if you have any follow-ups, just let me know.
Fantastic. Thank you. I think you're muted, Kelly.
All right. We are just bringing up our next little set of panelists. But again, I just want to thank you so much for being here today, Noah. That was really helpful. We, as a reminder, we will be sending all of this information out in the wrap-up report, so we'll keep the conversation going. I think the best thing all of you guys can do is offer each other suggestions. So I think it's wonderful that we're all talking about this, and that was a really inspiring way to start this conversation. So thank you, Noah, so much.
Thank you.
All right. So let me just, sorry, I hate to tell you this, but there's just all these back-end things that I have to do at the same time, so you guys have to suffer with me for 1 second. All right. Let's see. Okay. So our next session is going to be very exciting. Yoga where you are, which I just love the concept of very much because, you know, not everybody has the time to set aside to go to a yoga studio, especially nowadays. And, you know, sometimes you just need a moment immediately wherever you are. So I'm just going to introduce our next two speakers. And again, if you have any questions, put them in the chat box. But Dianne Bondi is a celebrated yoga teacher, social justice activist, and leading voice of the Yoga for All movement. Her inclusive view of yoga, asana, and philosophy inspires and empowers thousands of followers around the world, regardless of their shape, size, ethnicity, or level of ability. She applies over 1,000 hours of training to help her students find freedom, self-expression, and radical self-love in their yoga practice. She has been featured in publications such as The Guardian, Huffington Post, Cosmopolitan, and People. And Dianne is one of the authors of the book Yoga for Everyone. She is the author of the book Yoga for Everyone. And she's one of the co-authors of Yoga Where You Are. With Kat Heagberg, she is the editor-in-chief of Yoga International. Hi, Kat. And has been teaching yoga regularly since 2005. She also offers a variety of online classes and workshops at yogainternational.com, which I find these online yoga classes so helpful. Kat is also a host of the Yoga Talk podcast and co-editor of the book Embodied Resilience Through Yoga, 30 Mindful Essays About Finding Empowerment After Addiction, Trauma, Grief, and Loss. So thank you guys so much for being here today, and we are really excited about your talk and your demonstration. Oh, Kat, I feel like you might be muted.
You're muted. Thank you for having us. We're really excited to be here and share the book. I was actually really intrigued by Noah's book. I love the idea of bringing movement to the library. There's nothing more democratizing than having a space that feels really inviting for everybody to come to. I thought that was so brilliant and a great evolution of libraries. So I thought that was really cool. Sorry, I just had to say that. I was really impressed with Noah's book.
And I really appreciate you buying me some time while I was connecting my audio. We're really excited.
I'm here for you.
And to share this book and a little bit of yoga where we are to where you are today. And I wanted to tell you just a little bit about the philosophy behind our book before we get started. So Yoga Where You Are is not just about doing yoga where you are. It's about celebrating yourself, where you are and as you are. Diane and I think of it as the anti-New Year, New You. In other words, it is the new year, but same you. And it's an opportunity to celebrate yourself and how wonderful you are and really expand that out into the world. And so that's what our hope is with this book, is that it gives you the tools to adapt your yoga practice so that it fits your needs, not to try to change yourself to fit any idea of what a yogi or a yoga practice should look like. So we're going to start by doing just a little bit of a breathing exercise where you are. For a little bit of full disclosure, I am in my 600 square foot apartment, which is also my workspace, and I have exactly one chair. So I'm sitting in my chair for this breathing exercise, and I invite you to join me wherever you are. You can sit on the floor, cross-legged or kneeling. If you find that it's hard to sit tall when you're on the floor, I like to sit on a yoga block if you have one, or a pillow, or some blankets, or whatever you have where you are. You could also stand, you could lie down, but whatever position feels comfortable. And if your spine is upright, sit as tall as you can right now. I find it helpful to think of lining up the back of my head with the back of my pelvis, and then lengthening up tall through the crown of my head. You can rest your arms alongside you or hands on your lap, palms up, palms down. And if you are sitting in a chair right now, scoot forward enough so that you can plant your feet flat on the floor. You could even place some books or anything else nearby under your feet to make that a little easier. If you like, you can close your eyes or relax your eyes a little bit, soften your eyes. And right away, we'll set the intention to not try to fix or change anything about our breath right now. Just notice our breath. Notice when you're breathing in and when you're breathing out. If you're able to breathe in and out through your nose, breathe in and out through your nose. But if you feel stuffy, then breathe however you can breathe. It's really natural when you first start to notice your breath to feel like it's a little bit choppy or rough. And if you notice that, gradually, see if you can soften a little bit in any of those places that feel rough or choppy, and allow your breath to smooth out when it's ready to. Notice if your inhale or your exhale is a little bit longer. And then it might be interesting to see if you can find an inhale and exhale that are even. Perhaps you count to 3, 4, 5 on your inhale, and then that same number of counts on your exhale. The little yoga secret is if you find during the day that you're feeling a little bit stressed out, it can be useful sometimes to try to make your exhale a little longer than your inhale. So you might try that too if it sounds useful right now. Another interesting thing is to see if you can let your inhale weave right into your exhale, and your exhale weave right into your inhale. I find it helpful to just think about softening or relaxing at the end of my inhale, and just sort of naturally moves into the exhale. And same with the exhale. If I just think about relaxing or softening at the end, it naturally moves into the inhale. Feel free to keep counting if that's useful, or just let your breath settle into what feels good for you, what feels even, or what feels relaxing. And notice the places in your body that move as you breathe. If you're upright, you might notice movement in your rib cage, your upper abdomen. If you're lying down, you'll probably notice a little bit more movement in your belly. I often like to place my hands around my rib cage, wrapping my thumbs around the back, fingers around the front. And if I'd like to deepen my breath, I think about breathing back into my thumbs, to the right and left of the rib cage, all the way up into my collarbones. And I see if I can keep some of that fullness as I exhale and find a little engagement in my belly. Inhale into the back and the sides of the ribs, all the way up to the collarbones. And then keeping that, a little bit of engagement on the exhale. And keeping that as I expand on the inhale. You can bring your hands back into your lap or arms back alongside you if you were doing that. And allow your breath to return to a natural rhythm. Nothing to fix, nothing to change. And if your eyes are closed, blink them open. And Diane is going to show us some options for a little bit of movement with a chair now.
Thank you, Kat. So exactly where you are, continue your breath. So you can return to your natural, normal breath. How I like to breathe when I'm doing a yoga practice is equal inhalations to equal exhalations. And whether that's in through your nose and out through your mouth, or in through your nose and out through your nose, it's completely up to you. It's a way to just tap in and be present. So what is always going on in the present moment is the breath. So really think about that when you're feeling really scattered, or you're feeling like you need to take a pause. And a pause to take care of yourself can be as little as 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever you have. I think often we think of a yoga practice has to be an hour-long commitment, but you can do it right here wherever you're seated. So I'm sitting in a chair that has arms on the chair. If you are as well, I'm going to invite you to scoot to the edge of your chair so that you're not sitting up against the back, which is going to actually encourage us to support our spine. So think about pressing down through your seat and make yourself taller through your spine. So what I like to do is put my hand on top of my head and kind of push into my hand because it encourages me to lengthen. So the minute I start to lengthen, I make more space for my breath and I make more space for myself. Now gently start to tuck the lower tips of the shoulder blades onto the heart. And I'm going to invite you just to tip your right ear to your right shoulder. And then if it feels comfortable, you can stay here. If it feels comfortable, you can take your right hand, place it just above your right ear, and not pulling. We're gently going to create a little bit of pressure by pushing our head into our hand, and then with the same amount of pressure, pulling the hand back and releasing the shoulder down. So we want to create a little bit of length in the neck and a little bit of length in our bodies. Doing that for a breath or two more, just noticing the sensation you're feeling, rooting down through your sit bones, keeping your breath nice and stable. And then on the inhale, we'll release. And on the exhale, we're gently going to take our left ear to our left shoulder. You can stay here. You don't have to add any more sensation or intensity unless you want a little bit more, you want to experience, or you're curious about what that feels like. So you'll bring your fingertips just above your right ear, and then you'll release your right shoulder away from the ear. So go ahead and relax that right shoulder down. Maybe tuck the lower tip of the shoulder blade to the base of the heart, and pushing the head into the hand, and then with the equal amount of effort, the hand into the head, and noticing what happens along the neck, back, and shoulders. And just observing sensation, observing your breath, taking a moment for self-care here. And as you inhale, go ahead and release, bring your head back to center. I'm going to invite you to take your right hand, place it on your left knee, take your left hand, Place it either on the seat of the chair or on your waist or on the chair arm behind you. Root down through your sit bones, and now from beneath the rib cage, twist toward the left, taking your gaze perhaps over your shoulder and really rooting down through your feet and through your sit bones and giving your back a little bit of a twist here. Inhale back through center, and then on the next breath, left hand comes to right knee. Right fingertips can either come to the waist, the chair seat, the arm, or even the back of the chair. Root down through your seat, lengthen like we did out of the front of our head, and start to twist from beneath the rib cage to the right, perhaps taking our gaze over our shoulder and just observing what we're feeling in our bodies. So a nice twist in the spine can always create a little bit more movement and freedom and connection to the body. Inhale, come back through center. And now bring both hands on top of your knees. Take your knees out nice and wide. We're going to do something called cat-cow seated. So we're going to curl the shoulders back, lift the gaze up, take the head back, and think about a big scoop, like a big ice cream scoop out of your back. And then tuck the chin to the chest. Roll the shoulders forward and round the back. Think of a cow or a Halloween cat here. Inhale. Roll the shoulders back, lift the heart, look up. And now exhale and round, tuck the chin to the chest. And do a few of these. Now, you can do this on hands and knees. You can do this seated as I'm doing it. Or you can even get really expansive with it and do it standing up, leaning over. And it just all depends on wherever you are, wherever you have space. And know that these movements can be done no matter what you're wearing. I don't know if you can see, but I've actually got jeans on. I think the best invention for jeans is when somebody decided to put spandex in jeans. Hallelujah. But you can do this movement wherever. Beautiful. Let's do two more, wherever you are. So do this wherever you are, whether you're seated, whether you're on the floor, whether you choose to stand. It's wherever you are. One more. Good. And let's come back through center. So from seated, I'm going to invite you to bring your right ankle and cross it over your left knee. This is a seated pigeon or a seated hip opener. So if you tend to have a spine that's cranky because you've been sitting all day, or just cranky in general, like my back, this is a really good way to stretch. So now root down through your sitting bones, leading with your collarbone, lean forward until you feel sensation. And when you feel that first stretch, that first little bit of zhuzh, I call it, stop. And take a few deep breaths in here and just notice what you're feeling in your body. So a lot of us who work in academia or who tend to be really intellectual or tend to always be in our heads, very rarely get out of our heads and into our bodies. So hip stretches, because of their intensity, will often pull us out of our head and into our bodies. You'll start to notice what you're feeling and where you're feeling it. Inhale, come up nice and slow. Let's bring both feet back to the floor. And let's come to the second side. Even if you don't work in academia, or you can often get caught in your head. I like to spend a lot of time in there. It's fun in there. And occasionally I need to come out and get something else. So let's cross our left ankle over our right knee, root to our sitting bones, and then lean forward. So lead with the collarbones, lead with the heart, flex the feet, and then notice sensation and just be in your hips for a moment. Breathe. Enjoy. Observe. Always nice to be curious about what your body can do for you and celebrate those things. It doesn't matter how small they are or how big they are. No effort in this practice is ever wasted. Inhale, come all the way up. Bring the soles of the feet together down on the floor. This is called butterfly or Baddha Konasana. Hands on the knees, curl the shoulders back, and just notice the opening in your body. Notice the quality of your breath. Notice how you feel in your hips. Notice where your sit bones or your butt bones make contact with the chair, where the outer edges of your feet make contact with the floor, how your head aligns over your pelvis. Just take a few moments to observe your body in space. Observing your body exactly where you are. Now, very gently and very mindfully, return the bottoms of the feet to the floor. One more twist. I'm going to invite you to take that left hand to the right knee, right fingertips either to the waist, chair seat, chair arm, or back of the chair. Just take one final twist here. And inhale back through center. Exhale, let's do the second side. Inhale back through center. And then if it feels comfortable and if it feels safe to do so, you can go ahead and gently close your eyes. If you prefer, you can find something in front of you where you can anchor your gaze and soften it if you prefer to keep your eyes open. And I just want you to take a scan of your body, your feet flat on the floor. Notice the sensation of that, of feeling that. Perhaps notice the sensation of feeling your clothing on your skin. The sensation of whatever parts of your body are making contact with the chair. So you can always scoot your bottom to the back of your chair and lean back if you have a chair that has a back. Then notice the quality of your breath. Have you managed to keep it deep and full, or has it started to quicken a little? Notice if your shoulders have creeped up towards your ears, and if they have, can you soften them back down again? Can you notice if you're clenching your jaw? And if that's happening, perhaps make some space between the back teeth and gently press your tongue behind your two front teeth. And then notice that space between your eyebrows. Is your forehead furrowed or is it soft? And after taking that scan of your body, perhaps we give our body a little gratitude. We say something kind to ourselves. There's nothing to change. There's nothing you have to achieve. This body that you reside in is a gift. It is the vehicle in which you experience your life. And for that, we can respect it. And for that, we can show it gratitude. And for that, it is worthy of our gratitude and respect, not so much our criticism. So know whatever little bit of movement you do is always good. Remember, no effort is ever wasted. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.
That, Diane and Kat, that was too relaxing, I think. That was wonderful. We do have some questions. I don't know if we have time to cover a lot of them. One was, is it common to feel more of a pull on one side than the other? And I also have to say, before you answer that, I have to say that cranky spine. I definitely have a cranky spine. I loved that term.
Mine tends to be cranky. Yes. So sometimes the more dominant side of your body, I'm right-handed, and that's how you kind of determine what side of your body is a little bit more dominant, may sometimes they feel a little looser than your non-dominant side of your body because you tend to move that part of your body more. So it gets more movement. So it is not unusual, especially when you're doing a hip opener, for one side of your body to feel tighter than the other completely and normal, which is often why when you go and do it in kind of like, say, weight training or strength training, that it's better to do things individually on each side to balance out the inequity that sometimes happens from right to left. So that is very, very common for sure.
Oh, Kat, you're muted again. Sorry.
I'd also add to that, too, that often in the yoga world, symmetry is overrated or put up on a pedestal. None of us are symmetrical, even the way, our organs, anything in our body is not symmetrical. So if you feel something a little bit more on one side is harder than the other, that means that you are normal. Congratulations. And it's not even necessarily something to fix or change, but as Diane said, it can be really interesting to work one side and then the other, and just see what it feels like to, maybe find a little bit more symmetry. And if that feels good, keep working toward it. But I'd say it's a little.
Great. Well, thank you so much. In the wrap-up, I promised people we'd send a few best practices, so I'll get in touch with you guys for that, and I appreciate it. And just as a housekeeping thing, we're going to go on to our next speaker. Diane and Kat, if you could just turn off your video for a second, just because it takes me a minute to get everybody going. But thank you so much. That was so fun. I think everybody is more relaxed than they maybe need to be at almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You have to stay awake for a couple more hours, everybody. But thank you. And next up, it's kind of a perfect segue because we have Tom Vanderbilt, who his new book is called Beginning, and it's perfect, and Beginners, I'm sorry, and it's perfect because it's like you've never tried yoga before. This is like the perfect example. And I think, Tom, you were telling me yesterday that you just started yoga you just tried practicing that. So this is like the perfect segue into talking about all the things that people have been trying to, start this year with their maybe unasked for free time. But I think this is a perfect segue into your talk. I'm just going to give you a quick introduction of you before Tom starts to have a conversation with his editor, Andrew. And again, if you guys have questions, we'll put them in the chat box and we'll try to, at the end, let you know what's happening. And Andrew, if you happen to see any of the questions in the Q&A, you could interrupt Tom to answer them.
Sure.
So let me just read you Tom's bio real quick because it's so impressive. He's written for many publications. Sorry, I'm just going to cheat here, including the New York Times Magazine, the Wall Street Journal, Popular Science, Smithsonian, London Review of Books, among many others. He's got other books, which you have very great titles to your books. You may also like Taste in an Age of Endless Choice. I love that title. Traffic, Why We Drive the Way We Do and What It Says About Us, which I also love. And Survival City, Adventures Among the Ruins of Atomic America. And I feel like we all have a lot to learn from you today. It does say in your bio that you live in Brooklyn, but I learned yesterday that Tom is a fellow New Jersey guy like me. So I'm really happy to hear from you today. And I just want to read one thing. I saw a quote last night on Instagram from your book, and it says, "As you plunge into learning some art or skill, the world around you appears new and bursting with infinite horizons. You make mistakes, but even these are empowering because they are mistakes you have never made before." And I just love that. So we are so happy to have you here today, and I will disappear and have a great conversation, you two. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks, Kelly.
Go ahead, Tom. Yeah.
No, just say thank you. And and I've been, by the way, making a lot of new mistakes I've never made before in yoga. So I'm finding yoga very interesting. But and just before we plunge into things, I just want to give out a special shout to librarians because I think, as a writer, I think all writers probably feel this to some extent, but my love of reading, which turned later to a love of writing, was really born in libraries as I was a child. And, I was that kid taking up the stack of 15 books, whatever the limit was, I was taking them all every week. And libraries have continue to be important in my life, and in fact helped inspire this latest book. I'll just tell a very brief story if you don't mind. We were on vacation down in Sanibel Island, Florida, and one of the things we do when we go anywhere, my wife and I and my daughter, is we go to the library. And this is Florida. This is people are going to the beach, people are going to Dairy Queen. We're going to the library. So we were in the library getting books, and my daughter was about 4 at the time. We started to play a game of checkers, and then she saw this chessboard nearby, and she said, "What's that?" I said, "Well, that's chess." And she said, "Can we play, Daddy?" And I was like, I'd like that, but I actually don't know how to play. So that weird little moment there where I suddenly felt this panic in front of my daughter, like I don't know how to do something, led me to question, just why I had stopped learning a lot of new skills in my life as I was nearing 50. And so the book was basically born in a library, as, kind of my entire writing career was. So just special shout out to librarians, and sorry to interrupt, Andrew.
Not at all. Thanks for having us. I'm a great fan of libraries too. My 3.5-year-old son has not been able to go to the Brooklyn Public Library for a year now, and it's made him really sad. And my 18-month-old has never been. So we're hoping we can all kind of get back there soon. So, let's just sort of jump right in. Tom actually answered the first part of my two-part first question, which is about how we got started. But also, you could probably talk a bit more about that if you want. You're really good on it in the book. But also, I think people might be curious to know how you chose the skills that you decide to learn in the book, and that might give you a chance to talk a little bit more about how the book actually works.
Sure, great question. So the first thing was chess, because after I had this panic that I didn't know how to play chess, I tried to learn myself. I got a little bit of the way along. I was quickly in over my head because chess is a pretty complicated game, and if you don't know how to play, don't feel bad, because I didn't, and it's not that easy to learn. I mean, it's sort of easy to learn, but it quickly gets very complicated. So I hired a coach for my daughter, or at least to give her these weekly lessons. But then I thought, well, why should I stay on the sidelines as this person's like teaching my daughter how to do something? Why don't I jump in and learn also? So I just thought, wow, this is kind of a cool experience where we're learning this thing at the same time, separated by 4 decades of life. And then it just led me to wonder what other things had been sort of in the back of my mind that I had never gotten around to learning how to do and maybe had wanted to take a stab at. And these included things like singing, drawing, surfing, juggling, and there's some other things I kind of got into in the book which were almost accidental, because here's the thing about learning new skills, it's a little bit addicting. Once you start opening this door, you suddenly almost can't stop, which is not a bad thing. But so I tried to pick kind of a broad range of things, number one, in case I got bored with any of those things and turned out I didn't like them, but also just to really sort of dive in and give myself a mini, almost like a college curriculum, and have something that was a little physical, something that was a little mental, and something that was sort of artistic. And so yeah, that's kind of the how and why.
And one of the things that you talked about in the book was what you call the fear of sucking as a sort of one of the kind of obstacles often to adult learning, which is basically that adults are afraid of not being good at things, that we're so used to being competent. Can you talk a little bit more about that and sort of how you dealt with that, what you've seen about it in your research, but also how you dealt with that personally and how you got past it?
Yeah, I mean, here I am in my in my 50s, and trying to be trying to be good at things generally in life. I'm trying to be a good parent, present this sense of authority and knowledge to my daughter, trying to seem like a competent writer, who's turning in well-crafted pieces, and just so the question is, why would I want to be actually bad at something? Why would I bring that into my world? And to do something like to try to become a singer or to sing, there's not a huge need in my own, there's certainly no professional benefit for me. The world doesn't really need another amateur singer, or doesn't need me as an amateur singer. There's a lot of hurdles you sort of have to get over, internally, but fear is one of the main things. I just don't really want to be seen being bad at anything, even in a group of other beginners. I still have that, sort of moment. And to be honest, it's not been that easy. I still have moments where I'll go surfing, for example, and I see that there's a lot of really good people out there, and I have a moment's hesitation before entering the water. But but overall, the experience has been so positive and just led me to just get over that hurdle. I don't know that I have a secret other than just sort of being. I mean, psychologists talk about this thing called openness to experience, and it's sort of related to a lot of other things, one of which is longevity in life, because you're this idea that you're willing to put yourself out there to challenge yourself in new ways, even if you're not going to be great at it. And I just want to say that I'm not great at any of these things, and that really wasn't the goal. I just wanted to try them, see if I could, where it would take me, what it would do to me, and and being bad at something doesn't necessarily mean you're actually going to feel bad. And I think we should sort of separate those two things. I've had a lot of fun and positive feelings even when I was making a lot of mistakes. Of course, if you do get a little bit better, that's a great, sort of bonus gift. But I didn't want to make that the goal, that it had to be all or nothing. You're gonna master this or whatever. But really focusing more on the process rather than a goal.
And what about, I mean, there's all that famous saying, old dogs can't learn new tricks, and I mean, that's also one of the things that you address in the book, that, then like and what do the sort of studies say about that, whether we are actually unable to, and how did you find it yourself? I
mean, I didn't have to look further from my own living room to know that it's easier in some ways, definitely, for kids to learn new things than adults, like chess. But this concept of neural plasticity, which is the capacity for the brain to change itself, to rearrange itself as you learn these new things, I mean, that just doesn't go away. So there's some evidence that, I mean, I don't want to sugarcoat it. It gets harder to learn new things as you get older, but it's just not impossible. It just means you have to put in a little bit more work. And in the course of writing the book, I met all sorts of people in their 70s, 80s who were learning to swim in the open ocean, learning to try to juggle 5 balls, which I actually still can't do. And these were people that maybe they had this inner voice, the societal voice telling them, it's too late, you're too old. But you managed to get over that, and it was bringing them not only great pleasure, but proven cognitive benefits that doing these things not just kind of reshapes your brain, but actually seems to help your brain in certain ways. I'll just mention one quick study they did down in Texas, where they had people take these classes, sort of older people take these classes in digital photography and quilting. People who took those classes ended up doing better on these other cognitive tests that had nothing to do with photography or quilting, but it just made them, a little bit more sharp in the end. So it just really is such a beneficial activity in so many ways.
And do you feel like you felt it? Like, I remember the last thing I sort of learned was a few years ago, before my kids were born, was learning how to fly fish. And I felt like all the time when I was learning it, the rest of my life was kind of like suffused with this sort of excitement about that I think was all kind of coming out of this, learning this new skill that I enjoyed so much. And did you find that it affected you on that kind of level, where it's like, and you have seen that with the singing and the group, where you're just sort of like, it just changes everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like the moment when you first learn about some movie you've never heard of or something, then you suddenly feel like you're hearing that movie everywhere. People are talking about that. And, this whole world has been unlocked to you. I started playing chess, and suddenly Netflix came out with this Queen's Gambit show. And, hey, I actually know those openings they're doing in there. And that's kind of, I was like hyper attuned to this. When you said, how it made me feel, I kind of at first thought you meant the actual process of learning, which, this is something where there were moments, for example, learning to juggle, where I could feel my head just literally hurting. And this is, I would sort of get this thing down where I could do 3 balls. Then the teacher would say, okay, now don't start with your left hand, start with your right hand. And I would just have this headache come on. I'm like, I don't think I can do this. And, eventually I could get it. Then it became automatic. And this is this funny thing where now doesn't hurt. You're not thinking about it. That probably means you've made it automatic, which means you're no longer learning. So you should probably push on to that next little thing that's going to make your brain hurt just that much. But I don't want to make it sound like it's all pain, though. There's just been a great amount of pleasure here. And with singing, what's so great about singing is just practicing singing is so fun and almost, I would say, therapeutic and restorative. Just doing simple vocal exercises, which often to reflect back to the previous speakers are breathing exercises. So, I mean, singing is another way to tap into some of the benefits that yoga offers with breathing. And it feels like therapy to me.
Kelly, how much more time do we have? I wasn't sure what time we started. If you could just put it up on chat, that'd be great.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, maybe just ask one or two more, one or two more things, and then we'll get going. But I will say there's been some great comments, like you've taken the fear out of failure with this book. So this is really wonderful.
Great. Okay, so I think one of the things I wanted to ask is sort of what the resources are. I mean, you were doing a lot of this pre-pandemic. I know you talked a bit about online learning and interviews since then, but how would people get started on this? And I know libraries are one place have always been a good place to learn. So, what's out there for people then and now and in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I loved in-person learning. I loved being with people in a social environment. So I was a bit worried when all that was taken away from me. And, choirs, it turns out choirs are one of the most virulent super spreader events. I mean, so you can't sing with people, which was a horrible thing to be sort of taken away. But, I was heartened to see that a lot of things, were sort of there to take its place. And the world of online learning was already there, but it really has just taken on a new importance and sort of maturity, and there's so much of it out there. So everything from Duolingo and Coursera to things like that, to something like Chessable, which is a thing that will help you practice your chess using all these noted learning techniques. And there are instructors online, and yes, via libraries. There are all sorts of courses being offered, all sorts of classes. And I was worried. I did an online drawing course earlier this year. I'm like, well, how is this going to go? I feel like I need to be in the studio looking at this thing. And it actually, to my surprise and delight, was really good. And I felt like I was getting, just about as much of that experience as I was. And in fact, there were even some new tools the instructor was able to use because we were in this digital environment. So I think it's, online, it's yet another thing we can be beginners in and learn how to work with the best and try to improve. But everything I did in this book, well, except for surfing, I haven't found a way to surf online yet, but you can do in the comfort of your own home via a lot of great resources and everything beyond that, from sourdough. We've all heard about sourdough bread baking, quilting, ceramics, anything. There's people out there, and so the world has been brought so much closer.
And I guess my last question, I would say, is, one of the things that you talked earlier about, sort of cognitive benefits of learning, and there's a lot that kind of like helps you personally. But one of the things I really loved about the book, and it also makes me kind of look forward to when we kind of get life back to normal again, is sort of, if you talk about how it brought you out. I mean, it's sort of, your whole learning process ends up becoming so outward focused. And you met all these people, and I like, that was just something I hadn't expected when I got into the book that I found really powerful.
Yeah, I was worried that when I started this, maybe this is some kind of, really self-indulgent, middle-aged kind of project where this guy just wants to do all this stuff and think about it and reflect about it. But what I really, and I didn't go into this thinking I wanted to meet people per se or make friends, but it was a thing where, being in all these classes amongst people who are like-minded in the sense of wanting to learn new things, having the sense of humility to be open to learn new things, which is an important thing here, and just coming from all walks of life and just being united in this desire to push themselves in certain ways and not be afraid to open themselves up. And so it's brought me friendships to this day, and not just friendships, but I've been learning from those people as well. Being in these group environments, you're learning from the teacher, but you have this wonderful chance to pick up ideas and learn from the movements and actions of people around you. And then as you get a little bit better, you become part of that virtuous cycle, and you can help the people that are new in the choir or whatever. So I've been on sort of both sides of that equation now, both the wide-eyed novice who looks like he's about, has very much stage fright, to the sort of like slightly grizzled choir veteran who can recognize that person who looks like the deer in the headlights and maybe give them a tip or two.
Great. Sorry, one last question. What's next? What are you going to learn? What's your next thing?
Well, my daughter just joined a mountain biking club, so I have this thing now where I feel like I don't want to be left behind by her. So I've bought a mountain bike, and I have to kind of figure out how to ride off-road. So that's,
All right. Good luck with that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So much. I think that was so inspiring. You have people telling you in the chat box that they're learning how to ski and play chess. And is this book appropriate for teens and older? What's the age range, would you say? Is it more for adults?
More for adults, but I would think teens would be interesting. And teens could be as open to this as everything. I make a point in the book that, sometimes by our teenage years, we've already said to ourselves, oh, I'm not really a good artist, I'm not a good singer, I shouldn't do that. But, so to try to encourage teens to keep that open-minded, spirit as well.
That's true. That is very true. Well, thank you so much. I think,
Thank you.
Especially this month, the new year starting off a little crazy, this has been very inspiring. And I think we'd love to hear from all of you what you're taking up, what new thing you're beginning at. So thank you very much, both of you, for joining us today. We will talk to you soon. Take care. Keep learning stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Okay.
So, and Tom.
All right. All right, we're just waiting for Lisa to come on. But Miriam, why don't you go ahead and introduce Lisa before she comes on?
Absolutely. I'm delighted to introduce Lisa Genova. She is the New York Times bestselling author of the novels Still Alice, Left Neglected, Love Anthony, Inside the O'Briens, and Every Note Played. Still Alice was adapted into an Oscar-winning film starring Julianne Moore, Alex Baldwin, and Kristen Stewart. Lisa holds a degree in biopsychology from Bates College and a PhD in neuroscience from Harvard University. She travels worldwide speaking about the neurological diseases she writes about and has appeared on The Dr. Oz Show, Today, PBS NewsHour, CNN, and NPR. Her TED Talk, What You Can Do to Prevent Alzheimer's, has been viewed more than 5 million times. And today, Lisa is joining us to discuss her latest book, Remember the Science of Memory and the Art of Forgetting. Welcome, Lisa.
Yay, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This is really fun to get to do, although it's so strange, right? So we're not in person. I can't see any of you. Like the other speakers before, I miss libraries and librarians. I live on Cape Cod, but I also have an apartment up in Copley Square in Boston, right opposite the Boston Public Library, and I walk by it and long to be in there. Someday soon. We're getting closer, people. I can feel it. So I want to talk to you a little bit about this new book of mine. It's my first nonfiction title. It's sort of going back to my roots as a neuroscientist. I won't be able to see you, but raise your hand if sometime within the past week you couldn't remember where you put your phone. Raise your hand if you recently had a word stuck on the tip of your tongue, so you couldn't remember the name of an actor or the name of a Netflix show that one of your friends recommended. Raise your hand if you've forgotten to take out the trash or move the laundry from the washer to the dryer. That's a huge one for me. Pick up something at the grocery store that you meant to buy or to call someone you meant to call. Raise your hand if you've recently forgotten a password to any of your online accounts. Like over and over. All right, so what's going on here? Is your memory failing?
Lisa, I will tell you in the chat section you can raise your hand, and it looks like mostly everybody has raised their hand.
Yeah, so that's the deal, right? This is normal. This is your memory's not failing. It's doing exactly what your brain is designed to do. So we all place a lot of importance on our memory, and with really good reason. Like, without it, information and experiences can't be retained. New people would remain strangers. You wouldn't be able to remember the previous sentence by the end of this one. You depend on memory to call your mother later today or to take your heart medication before you go to bed tonight. You need memory to get dressed, brush your teeth, read a book, play tennis, drive your car. You use your memory from the moment you wake up until the moment you go to sleep. And even then, and very importantly while you sleep, your memory processes are busy at work. The significant facts and moments of your life strung together create your life's narrative and your identity. So memory allows you to have a sense of who you are and who you've been. If you've ever witnessed someone stripped bare of their personal history by Alzheimer's disease, you know firsthand how essential memory is to the experience of being human. But for all its miraculous, necessary, and pervasive presence in our lives, memory is so far from perfect. Our brains are not designed to remember people's names, to do something later, or to catalog everything we encounter. These imperfections are simply our brain's factory settings. Even in the smartest of heads, memory is fallible. A man in Japan who's famous for memorizing over 100,000 digits of pi forgot his wife's birthday a couple years ago and can forget why he walked into the living room. In fact, most of us will forget the majority of what we experience today by tomorrow. Add that all up, and that means we actually don't even remember most of our own lives. Think about that. So what determines what we remember and what we forget? Well, memory is quite economical. In a nutshell, our brains have evolved to remember what is meaningful. It forgets what isn't. So the truth is, most of our lives, especially today in the pandemic when we're stuck in our homes, our lives are habitual, routine, and kind of inconsequential. We shower, we brush our teeth, we drink coffee, we do our jobs, we eat dinner, we watch TV, we spend too much time on social media. Hopefully we read a little something, and then we go to bed. Day after day after day. And we can't remember anything about the load of laundry we did last week. And that's okay. Most of the time, forgetting isn't actually a problem to solve. Now, we'd probably all agree that forgetting your 10th kiss, last week's laundry, what you ate for breakfast last Wednesday, or whatever's on the head of a penny isn't such a big deal. But our brains actually do forget plenty of things that we do care about and that we would say are meaningful, right? So back in the day when I used to go to the library, I would very much like to remember to return my daughter's library book on time. I'd like to remember why I just walked into the kitchen. Where did I put my glasses? What you just said to me. These things matter. In these instances, we often forget, not because it's efficient for our brains to do so, but because we haven't supplied our brains with the right kinds of input needed to support memory creation and retrieval. So these garden variety memory failures are normal outcomes of our brain's design. Most of what we forget is actually not a failure of character, which is where a lot of us tend to go. It's not a symptom of Alzheimer's disease, another place we tend to go for over 40, or even a reasonable cause for fear. We tend to, as a culture, and I know this because I've been talking about Alzheimer's for the past decade, and people feel really worried, embarrassed, and scared every time they forget something that they believe they should remember or would have remembered back in the day when they were a little bit younger. And I think we all hold on to this assumption that memory will weaken with age and betray us and eventually leave us. So I've been, like I said, talking to people for over a decade, and there's so much anxiety and fear and stress around memory and forgetting. And while I can explain sort of, why you've forgotten your Netflix password or the name of that movie starring Tina Fey and help you relax, I've been doing this one person at a time, which isn't a very efficient way to go about it. So that is the reason for this book. I want to give you all an understanding of how your memory works, why it normally and naturally fails, so you can relax. Like the yoga people just talked to you about, being chronically stressed is not good for you, and it's actually really bad for your memory. So ironically, chronically stressing about your memory can actually create a real memory problem. So I want to help you. All right, so this is a super quick talk. So I just want to give you a little flavor for a little bit of the book. So I want to give you 3 examples of super common memory failures and why they're totally normal. All right, so the first one is where'd I leave my phone, my keys, my glasses, and in that bucket is also where'd I park my car? So this stuff happens to all of us every day. And one of my favorite examples is in the not too distant past, I had a talk in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I drove up 2 hours from Cape Cod, parked my car in a garage, scooted out because I was running a little late and I'm the speaker, so I got to get there on time. I run out, give my talk, answer questions, and I'm done. It's an hour and a half later. I go back to the garage. I can't find that car. I am in high heels, bopping up and down ramps, like getting sweaty and anxious and worried, and I'm pressing the button hoping to see the lights of my car or to hear the beep beep. I literally got to the point where I'm like, I think it must be stolen. I've got to call my friend who's a Boston cop and figure out what to do, when I finally stumbled upon it. So, what just happened here? Was I having a senior moment? I'm 50 now, so, what's going on? Now, in order to remember anything, the very first thing we must supply our brain is our attention. So I didn't pay attention to where I parked my car in the first place because I was in a hurry. And so my brain never had a chance to form a memory of where my car was. So this wasn't a failure of memory. It was a failure of attention. So every time you're like, I can't find my keys, my phone, my glasses, did you pay attention to where you put them in the first place? Probably not. And so I think that helps in 2 ways. One, it alleviates the fear of is my memory failing? Am I getting, is this a sign of dementia? No. And the other is, I need to slow down a little bit. I need to pay attention to something if I want to remember where it is. Some of us have experienced this driving too. You ever drive somewhere? And like for me, I have to cross over a really big bridge on the way to Cape Cod from Boston. And it's, an unmissable, gigantic, formidable structure. And 9 times out of 10, I drive over that bridge and like 10 minutes later, I'm like, did I go over it? Right? That little highway amnesia. It's because I wasn't paying attention to the bridge. My eyes saw it, my brain saw it, but I didn't remember seeing it because I was lost in thought or listening to an audiobook. All right, so you got to pay attention if you want to remember anything. Another one real quick. Oh, what's his name? Right? Tip of the tongue. How many of us deal with this every day? I'm finding that I am experiencing it more and more. And it does uptick a little as you get older. But this is also a totally normal form of forgetting. So my example in the book, I talked about how I couldn't remember the name of the actor who plays Tony Soprano in The Sopranos. I was like, I could tell you all kinds of other things about him. And Edie Falco stars opposite him, and he was in that lovely movie with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and I could picture him in the bathrobe walking down that driveway to get his newspaper. I'm like, does it begin with A? I'm like, no, that's Anthony. That's his character's name. And then I did get the first letter. It's like, oh, it's J. It's got John, Jack, Jerry. Nope, none of those. I suffered and suffered for like hours, could not come up with it. Finally, I just said, I'm going to Google it. Actor who plays Tony Soprano, James Gandolfini. So the deal with tip of the tongue, it's always a word you know. So it's in your brain. You just haven't supplied enough neural activation to activate the set of neurons that hold that memory. So it's stored there. You just can't produce it. And it's totally normal. Being in a tip of the tongue state does not mean you have Alzheimer's. The average 25-year-old experiences 3 to 4 of these a week. But the average 25-year-old either doesn't even notice that they've had these because, memory loss, Alzheimer's, mortality is not on their radars. Or because they've been tethered to their devices since birth, they see no problem with looking it up immediately, so they don't suffer for a second. Whereas we older people tend to think we need to do this the old school way. Which brings me to a really important point. A lot of people worry that if they use Google to find their blocked words, this is somehow cheating or contributing to the problem and actually worsening their already weakening memory. Not true. This is a myth. Let me bust it for you right now. You don't earn any points. This is misinformed. You don't, it doesn't weaken your memory's ability. It doesn't help you resolve further tip of the tongues faster. It doesn't help you experience fewer of these in the future. It doesn't help you at getting better at finding your keys or your phone or remembering other kinds of pieces of information. You're just suffering. So you can use Google. You don't have to be a memory martyr here. In fact, I recommend it because it's agonizing to have it. And it's amazing. A lot of times your brain is actually searching the wrong sets of neurons. It's finding a similar word. So sometimes you will be searching for a word that sounds similar or has the first letter or somehow related, but it's not it. And so you're in the wrong neural neighborhood. And as soon as you call off the hunt and you give up and you give it some time, often it'll pop into your head later. That's because you've given up on the wrong neural neighborhood. It gives your brain a chance to search the right place. Okay, one more because we've just got a couple more minutes. How about the I need to remember to, right? So your to-do list. I need to remember to call my mom, schedule a doctor's appointment, take my allergy pill, take up the trash, reply to an email, attend this talk. So it's called prospective memory. It's your memory for what you need to do later. And this is a little like mental time travel. You're creating an intention for your future you. So you're saying okay, brain, remember to do this at a future time and place. And it is fraught with forgetting. In fact, I would say that prospective memory is so poorly supported by our brain's neural circuitry and so steeped in failure, it can almost be thought of as a kind of forgetting rather than a kind of memory. So we forget what we intend to do all the time. So we forget to buy the toothpaste, pick up the prescription. Marketing companies take advantage of this glitch in our brains all the time, right? So I've already done this. You're on Instagram, sign up for this meditation app, or, a magazine article, subscribe to the magazine for 30 days, or you subscribe to something and then you forget, you decide you don't like it, but you forget to unsubscribe and you get your credit card bill and you're like, oh. So we're terrible at this. And it's not just the little things. Surgeons, not anymore because they now have checklists that exist outside their brains, but there was a study, a watchdog group checked for, I think it was 2005 to 2012, and recorded 772 surgical instruments left inside patients following surgery. The surgeons forgot to do the thing they intended to do later, which is take the scissors out of the abdomen. Yo-Yo Ma, the world's most famous cellist, put his cello in the trunk of a cab, got in the cab, went to a hotel, got out of the cab, left his $2 million Stradivarius in the trunk because the cue wasn't sitting there in the back seat with him. He forgot what he intended to do, which is take the cello with him. So we're terrible at this. And again, instead of beating yourself up over it or thinking like, oh, every time I forget to do something I said I was going to do later, am I getting Alzheimer's? You're not. Our brains aren't designed to remember what to do later. So this is why we need to externalize our brain, right? So we can use our phones for to-do lists, checklists, calendar reminders, alerts, pill boxes. They have pill box apps to remind you. We also, I do have a habit of, like, if I need to bring something with me or I need to mail a letter, I put it in front of the front door so that the cue for remembering to bring the letter, I'm literally going to have to trip over it before I leave the house. So find aids that exist outside of your brain to help you remember to do something in the future, because your future you is going to forget. So that's all I have for you for now for teaser, because we only have a few minutes together. But I hope you love this book, and I hope it helps a lot of people. The intention behind this was to help everyone understand what's going on with their memory, to understand brain health that supports memory. There's a lot in there about stress and sleep and exercise. So understanding your brain health, how to support memory, and how to relax with forgetting, because forgetting is part of being human.
Thank you, Lisa. That was so helpful and made me feel so much better, because I've definitely walked around New York City 3 or 4 times looking for my car and the parking garage. I definitely have I'm definitely a memory murder. I love that saying. That's funny, because I refuse to look things up, and now I won't feel so bad, because you're right. I feel like I'm making my brain weaker instead of just admitting it.
And that there are ways you can, like, strengthen your memory. There are exercises and things that you can do to get better at different kinds of memory, and I go over that. But in terms of tip of the tongue, you're not going to improve your tip of the tongue solving problems by solving them on your own. It's still going to happen. And I describe it in the book as to why sort of this is like a neurological cul-de-sac. It's very difficult to get to in your brain. It's not like in a busy cross street where there's like 47 different ways to get to that address. There's like one way to get there, because it's usually names. It's like proper names, right? It's names, it's book titles, it's movie titles, it's places, and we're what is that? So there's no way to decrease that. So just look it up, people.
Yeah, I love it. Yes, I definitely, and I've definitely, I've called my boss before saying I'm going to be really late because I'm listening to an audiobook and I've passed my exit. Like I love driving amnesia. That's awesome. But you're right. We all have so much on our minds, and especially this year. So I think the timing of this book called Remember is perfect for this year, because I feel like everyone's brain is like just so full of information and stress right now. So thank you so much. It was so lovely to have you with us today. And we really appreciate it. Everybody keeps asking me in the chat if we're going to be sending out more information about the book. Yes, we are. And Lisa, why don't you say your Twitter or your social media handle? Because I know you said that you were happy for people to ask you questions directly.
Yeah, so people can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. I am on Twitter, but I'm terrible at checking there. So Instagram and Facebook are the places to find me. And I'll be, in addition to being able to chat with me, I'll be posting a lot of educational material over the next many months about memory and how it works and how it fails. So I'm at author Lisa Genova for both Facebook and Instagram. So come find me.
Thank you. Definitely the perfect book. I'm going to get this for myself and my sisters because we do that all the time. What was the person's name? We're the worst. So, and every one of us has actually left a child somewhere, which makes me feel terrible. That you should remind yourself to do. Don't forget your children.
Oh, that's so funny. That just happened to my friend and I yesterday. We were at the dog park, and she almost left her 8-year-old son. She's like, "Oh my God." And it's just like we don't pay attention. So yes, all of these kinds of glitches, I explain why they happen, why they're normal, and what you can do to mitigate them if you can, and then how to just let it go if you can't.
Thank you so much. Take care. Good luck with the book. Thank you. We were so happy to have you today. It was our honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, everyone.
For the rest of you on the call, we're just going to quickly give you a little bit of information about the next event and give you a little bit of information about our some other titles that we think are perfect for further reading. Again, like I said, all of this, because all of us have just admitted to having terrible memories. I don't think I've ever seen that many hands go up in a chat in my life, which I love your honesty. Hold on, I'm just going to skip here. So I know some of you were asking me for the names of the books because it's hard to go back and forth, but there's the cover of Tom's book if you wanted to get a good look at it. And again, it'll be in the wrap-up report. And there's the cover of Lisa's book. So that was really exciting. We all learned a lot. We got to stretch. And Miriam, why don't you close us out? Thank you all for joining us today.
Yes, so we do have a collection of featured titles on personal growth, motivational titles, health and fitness books, science titles, and for titles for kids across all formats. And we also have some e-galleys on Ada Life that we encourage you to request. Our next program, next episode of Library Lunch and Learn will be on March 11th, and the focus will be science. We're so excited to have a 3-person team of librarians from the National Library of Medicine's Mid-Atlantic region who've confirmed their talk about citizen science programs. And the author lineup is still to come, but we encourage you to register for it. And thank you again to Noah, Diane, Kat, Andrew, Tom, and Lisa for their very insightful discussions. And thank you, library colleagues, for all that you do. We at the library marketing team really appreciate you.
We do. Thank you. I feel smarter already and more relaxed. So take care, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today.